We're going to be talking about return to learn plans for the area schools on our public service program here on KROS. We're going to be talking with area superintendents. This morning we get a chance to talk with Camanche Schools Superintendent Tom Parker. And thanks, Tom, for coming in, talking a little bit about that return to school plan. You spent months coming up with the plan. I don't know what's the easiest way to start. What have you got planned? I think you start, I look at the calendar, the 24th.
Yes.
So when they come back to school the 24th, what's in store?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss all this with you, Dave. I do appreciate that. On the 24th in Camanche, we'll be looking at returning to school with our hybrid learning plan. You're absolutely correct. We've been working on our return to learn plan for several months as an administrative team. We've also involved a lot of different stakeholders in the school district. We've involved teaching staff. We've involved parents through a parental survey we've had out there. And by the way, we've been very pleased with the response on the parent survey. And we've been trying to keep everything current by posting it on our district website. On our website, we have a button you can more or less touch, and that will in turn take you to the return to learn information containing a lot of that. There are three basic plans that the state wanted us working on developing. One plan would have been to have everyone return in person. The other option would have been for everyone to continue their education online. And the third option is a hybrid, which basically in Camanche, what the hybrid plan means is we're going to lessen the number of students in each of our buildings each day and spread them out, so to speak, to follow social distancing. So that's what the hybrid plan means to us. And we are going to start using the hybrid plan on the 24th when school begins.
How does that break down? Who's going to be there? What days? Who's going to be remote learning? How is that going to take us through that process? Who's going to show up and who's not?
Yes, absolutely. Each building had a little bit of a different approach. In Camanche, of course, we have three buildings. We have an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. And the learning needs of each student was very important to consider when looking at how these plans would be developed. Of course, heading into this, our biggest priority was making sure we were keeping students and staff as safe as possible. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure we were offering quality learning to our students. And given the current status of where we're at with the pandemic, we really came to the conclusion that the hybrid plan would be the best plan. And each building has developed a schedule as far as working with our students. And again, what we're doing is limiting the number of students in each building each day when we're in the hybrid plan. So first at the elementary school, in planning our hybrid approach in that building, we really came to the conclusion that it was going to be very important to have our students see their teacher every day. So under that premise, we started developing the return to learn plan. And basically what we're going to do is divide each section in half. So roughly 50% of the students will be with their classroom teacher at any given time. And the first group or first half of students would meet with their classroom teacher in the morning. The other half of the students would be meeting with their special teachers, such as music, PE, art, and also doing some work with technology on their computers. And once we arrive at the middle of the day, which is typically around lunch, we would then rotate that. So the children who were working on the computer and with their specials teachers would then be in working with their classroom teacher in the afternoon. and the children who started their day with a classroom teacher would then in the afternoon be working with their specials teachers and online. We then took a look at, okay, what are we going to do with our secondary students? And in this case, we're talking about middle school and high school students, grades 5 through 12. And we looked at what kind of schedule would make sense there. Again, the learning needs of our secondary students are a little different, and we came up with a hybrid plan, which is based on a 2-week cycle. So basically what we do is have students attending 3 days in person on 1 week, and then online or virtually attending for 2 days that week. And then the second week, they would flip-flop with a second group who's running an opposite schedule, if you will. And then they would be doing 2 days in person and then 3 days online. And we're thinking that way they're still getting or having an opportunity to have contact with their teacher, and we'll follow through the plan that way. And also it allows us to comply with the governor's proclamation that students are receiving at least 50% of their learning in person.
And Tom, doing this, you got this on. I know there's some discussion again. He says at one of the board meetings, some concern or some issues raised about especially the fifth graders, maybe fifth and sixth graders, maybe not being at home alone. There's that value there, and parents may have different attitudes, maybe depending upon what other siblings they have. There was some consideration maybe to seeing if there's space available that maybe those who were remote learning in that fifth and sixth grade in particular could use some space at the school and be there with some limited supervision. They still be online. Any effort there, or fifth and sixth graders still expected to be simply at home no matter what?
Well, at this stage of the game, I know our middle school principal, Justin Schaefer, is reaching out to parents of students in that age group to get a better sense of what their concerns are and what options are available to help with supervision or child care scenarios for students that age. And that is still something we're working on developing.
I know that's kind of that age where some parents, it may depend upon the sibling factor, whether they have older siblings at home as well in those same days and do those things, as we probably will hear a lot about that kind of scenario. But talk about the online. In the spring, as we were talking before, it says this kind of came upon over the weekend almost, where you went from in class to online, and it was done as well as schools could probably do it on such short notice. Now you're expected to be a little more organized, if I may put it that way, with the online learning, a little more regimented, a little more students have to do this. How's that working? What do you have for the online that combines with some of that classroom work and some online?
Yes, you're absolutely right. This did happen very quickly. As a matter of fact, in Camanche's case, we were out at the state basketball tournament, and then that same weekend, the announcement came that we were going to shift to online learning. So it was a very quick transition for us, and I realized for everyone else also. And I was very pleased with the way our teachers stepped up and took on that challenge and really got out there to get in contact with their students and give them the educational support they needed. And we also gained some very valuable experience by being in this scenario. So that has allowed us to prepare ourselves to better deliver education educationally. You know, it did cause me to reflect back to earlier in my career when I first started as an administrator 32 short years ago. We would have been in quite a predicament if something like this would have happened back then, because we would not have had the means of using technology to address educational needs students have. So there was, on my behalf, at least some thought of being thankful for having the technology to support education, and we stepped forward with that. And so during the spring, we took the approach where it was optional for our younger students, and at the high school level, we did have it required so students could accumulate credit yet towards their graduation. We thought that was very important. So we have had some experience with the online component, and we're, again, thankful we've had that experience, which is going to help with this year as far as now that we're in a hybrid setting where our students are in person for roughly half of the time and then using online for the other half, or using technology to continue their education. Now, as we move into this school year, along with the Return to Learn plan, the state has said that parents can opt if there are medical reasons and such, or if the school district and parent working together make the determination of using an online option. In Camanche, what that's going to mean is we're working with a number of school districts in our area education agency and in our region to form a consortium, if you will, in working with an online provider. And that online provider is Edgenuity, and that's EDGENUITY. And I pointed out because there are other providers that have similar sounding names also. And what we wanted to do was to provide a quality and established online option for people who were in a position where online learning was going to be their learning option.
Well, the students who are rotating in and out classroom at home, will they be on that Edgenuity, or will that online, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, say they're home, will that be through the Camanche staff online, or will that be part of that Edgenuity program for those folks who are opting in to attend, on that rotating basis?
That's a good question. For students who are attending in person, they would be working with their own teacher online.
So you got two separate programs.
Absolutely, yes.
And Tom, if you could talk, we're talking Tom Parker, Camanche Schools Superintendent. And Tom, some people, maybe it's a perception. You talk about homeschool versus, the online. Says there's a difference between homeschooling and doing the online programming. Would that be a correct interpretation?
Yes, that is correct. With homeschooling, the parents are taking on the responsibility for their child's education. With this online option, the students would still be Camanche students, and we would be providing them and assisting with them getting their education online, and quite honestly, covering the cost for that also.
So you probably need to keep those terminologies straight so people don't jump to one or the other, because there is a difference in the way parents may want to approach it. And so they need to check with the school district and talk, I'm assuming you've had some already, checking to see what they can do and what best option for them.
Absolutely. We encourage parents with any questions to either contact my office or contact their child's principal, and we will certainly discuss options with them.
And Tom, with the students coming in, does that alleviate some of the things, or some of the questions may come for science with labs, or if you've got now career technical programs, a little more hands-on program than that, maybe the classroom lecture type or study program? With the students coming in, on at least a couple days, 2 or 3 days a week, does that help address those particular classes?
Well, yes and no. In a situation where students will need to use equipment in the class, obviously we'll be increasing the cleaning done with the equipment in the classes. We're going to be really stressing social distancing where possible. We're going to obviously follow the guidelines of hand washing as much as possible. We're increasing the number of sanitation stations around the building where you can get hand sanitizer and all that sort of thing to stay as clean as possible to try to control germs. And I think as we enter into that, we're going to really be counting on our students to work with us to do the things we can do to keep things as germ-free as possible and as sanitary as possible. Because all in all, our goal is, of course, to keep everyone safe and healthy. And also, we want to keep school in session as much as we possibly can, hopefully, for the entire school year.
Tom, within these buildings, there's some changes. You mentioned that, so that you in K through 4 are going to be there all day, every day. Different structures. Other levels. What about schedules? We've heard stories, and particular one making a lot of headline news, passing in the hallways and the crowded hallways and things like that, and lunchrooms and recesses. A lot of logistics there. How is that going to work so that can also, because again, it's made a lot of news here lately in the last few days with some of those particular issues, at least in some schools, creating some issues.
Yes, and I know each building is working on how they are going to address that. For instance, when the school day begins, we're going to use multiple entrances for students. So our goal is not to have large groups of students congregating together, that they would all have their own entrance, so to speak, or groups of students would have their own entrances to go through, which should help alleviate having a large number of students congregating together. During passing time, during classes, we certainly are looking at staggering a lot of those times, and we're also looking at alternative routes throughout the building, or maybe even in some cases going outside the building to get from one area to another, to try to avoid a lot of congestion in our halls and in common areas.
Now, says, when you look forward to this 2 weeks from now, what are your thoughts? You mentioned you've been an administrator for 30-something years. I guess it's safe to say you've never faced anything quite like this before, but what are your thoughts going into this? Looking back, what you've done, looking ahead to the school year.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We've never seen anything like this before in our career. I finally have an opportunity to relate back to stories my grandparents used to tell me and talk to me about when I was a youngster, with various diseases they had to battle through, whether it was tuberculosis, polio, the whooping cough, and things they would have to do to try to prevent these diseases before vaccinations and such existed. And it's given me a better appreciation for what they've had to deal with. And in approaching this, I've taken the approach that, this is a challenge, but we are going to give it our best effort. I'm sure there'll be some things that people, when they look back at this, will say, it was a good idea when the schools did this or that. But I'm also sure there'll be some things we will have done that people say that didn't turn out to be such a good idea. And we will learn that, or we'll use that as a learning experience also. So moving forward, it certainly has been a challenge. Again, we keep our focus on, we want to keep our students and staff as safe as possible and provide them with a quality education.
Now, as you talk to staff, is everybody, at least the folks at Camanche, generally comfortable with the ideas you got on the table? You think?
I think just like everything else, people have different feelings on this. In a lot of ways, a school community is a microcosm of our own bigger community here. And there's differing opinions on this, but we've really tried to reach out to people to give them an opportunity to provide us with their input. And I do think we have a general feeling that most people are on board with what we're doing and understand what we're doing. I know as I've been out and about in the community, people have generally been pretty darn supportive of what the school's doing, and I certainly appreciate that.
What about the staff? Have you had any teachers? I don't know how much you can get into some of that. Have you had teachers who don't want to come back, or take the year off? How are you dealing with some of that? Have you heard much of that concern?
We've kept open lines of communication with our teachers. And as teachers have concerns, we've encouraged them to talk to their principal or me about what those concerns are. And we have, and we will continue to look at what things can we do to help alleviate those concerns. Again, we want people feeling as safe as possible when they're in a school setting during this pandemic.
And what about going back? Is everybody ready? January or August 24th, ready to go? You got 2 weeks yet to prepare. You expect to fine tune any plans, maybe get things finalized in the 2 weeks before school starts. Since you're the first one in, you got actually 2 weeks and the doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. On one hand, I do think most people are ready for school to begin again. It's been a long time since we've actually been present in school. And I think a number of people are anxious to at least have that component of normalcy return to their lives. Now, it's going to look different than what we traditionally have been used to with school, but nonetheless, it's returning to school. Certainly, there's just going to be a lot of flexibility needed. I'm not at a point even yet where I would say every decision has absolutely completely been written into stone, because one thing we've learned during this pandemic is things can change very quickly, and they do sometimes, and you need to be flexible and able to, in some cases, change, it seems, on a moment's notice to be ready to go forward with what adjustment you need to make, and again, refocusing on safety for folks and quality education.
Tom, as you wrap up, give us a quick recap when school starts the 24th. What's the Camanche Schools going to look like? How you got things set up? Give us a quick recap.
All right.
Somebody missed that conversation earlier. What are we going to go back to?
On August 24th, Camanche plans to start with our hybrid plan. We've placed our Return to Learn material on our website under the Return to Learn button. I would encourage people to visit our website. And if there are questions, certainly feel free to reach out to your child's principal or me in my office the superintendent at the central office.
Well, thanks, Tom Parker, the Camanche School Superintendent, for coming in today. Any other quick wrap-up comments?
No, thank you for this opportunity again. And once again, our goal is to provide a safe environment for everyone and a quality education for our students.
Thanks, Tom, for coming in.
Thanks, Dave.